Accused of plotting to bring down the government, police officers and journalists are arrested in Turkey as Recep Tayyip Erdogan signals a new campaign against supporters of an influential Muslim cleric. Shifting politics or fears of a much greater threat? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. In Doha, I'm Adrian Finnegan. The government in Turkey is facing accusations of eroding democracy and press freedom following the arrest of at least 27 police officers, journalists and media workers. Those detained are accused of forgery and of fabricating evidence and, according to the state news agency, of forming a crime syndicate to overtake the sovereignty of the state. The raids are seen as the latest campaign against a US-based cleric, Fethullah Gulen, a one-time close ally of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, now considered his enemy and a threat to national security. Erdogan became the first president to be elected by popular vote in August, and the crackdown on opponents is being viewed by critics as yet another bid to tighten his grip on power ahead of a general election in June. To our guests in just a moment, after we hear from Al Jazeera's Rob Matheson.
A newspaper editor is detained. TV executives are seized as police raid their offices. The latest crackdown on opposition media in Turkey.
We are face to face with a veritable monster that has gone haywire, focused on toppling every democratic stronghold, determined to annihilate its every target with no regard for law and order, with violence and rage and hate.
The paper and TV station are connected to this man. Fethullah Gulen is a Muslim scholar living in exile in the US. He's also the spiritual leader of the Hizmet movement. It runs thousands of schools and institutions in 160 countries, including Turkey. In the 1980s and 90s, Gulen's influence grew, particularly with police, judges and lawyers. When he first came to power in 2002, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan sided with Gulen's network in the judiciary to end the military's influence in Turkish politics. But Erdogan and the Hizmet party ended up turning on each other. Erdogan blames the group for coordinating a corruption scandal in 2013 to topple his rule, even going so far as to accuse the group of wiretapping Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu and his family.
Those who penetrated into state institutions, those who wiretapped the most private meetings of the Prime Minister and the President, those who conspired against the National Intelligence Agency, they should not think that this will be left unpaid.
The payback came. The government reassigned thousands of police officers, judges and prosecutors, and it passed laws to curb the internet. Gulen went into exile in Pennsylvania. But now the US is urging Turkey to protect media freedoms. And the European Union, which Turkey wants to be part of, has criticized the raids. Rob Matheson, Al Jazeera.
Lots to talk about, as always. Let's bring in our guests for today's Inside Story. From Ankara, we're joined by Abdullah Bozkurt, Bureau Chief for the Today Zaman newspaper. Joining us from Berlin is Galip Daley, Fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. And completing our panel today, from London, we have Fadi Hakura, who's an Associate Fellow at Chatham House and a specialist on Turkey's domestic politics and economy. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. Let's start with you, Abdullah. What are we to make of these arrests, then, of the police, journalists and media workers? Is democracy and press freedom in Turkey under threat?
It is for sure, Adrian. This is part of the wider campaign that has been going on for some time on putting a huge pressure on the independent and the critical media. And Sunday's raid in the largest national daily in Turkey is part of that systematic campaign by President Erdogan and his allies in the government. What we have here is a government and one man who doesn't like any criticism, whether it comes from the media or from business community or from civil society for that matter. So that's why I think we have a huge outcry and uproar in Turkey across the board, from opposition parties, from unions, from civil society organizations and the media, as well as from outside, very strong reaction from the European Union and the United States. And the reason for this raid, as we understand it, is the anniversary of the major corruption investigation is coming up on December 17th, and the government, they don't want to see rehashing of this very significant allegation in the media. So if they intimidate the largest media group in Turkey, I think they contemplate all the others will toe the line and will fall in. So this is a major battle against the freedom of expression and the speech in Turkey, and we in the media are standing our feet steadfast on the ground, and we are vowing to fight to the end to protect the freedom of expression and speech in Turkey.
Galip Dale, is there any evidence that the law has been broken in this case? Will it even come to trial, do you think?
Well, I mean, if the previous cases are a precedent, with the military officers and others, because right now, the process of retrial has started with some of these cases because the evidences against them has been found not very strong and has been found forged. So therefore, I don't think that the door for retrial is closed. But I cannot also say for sure that it is going to be, the retrial will take place. So because right now, everything that we know is just that they have been taken into custody, and right now we don't know the full length of the cases and the charges that are going to be brought against them and how they are going to respond.
Fadi Okura, this is more to do with a power struggle, isn't it, between opposing political groups rather than a genuine attack on democracy and freedom in Turkey?
I think that what happened in the last few days was really an escalation of the ongoing feud between the Fethullah Gulen group and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The feud started when the alliance of convenience between them dissolved after the military was removed from power, and both started to compete with each other over state power and state resources. So now what we're seeing is an escalation of this ongoing feud between them.
Well, critics of the Turkish government say that these raids are yet more evidence of the AK Party's increasingly authoritarian rule. Turkey ranks 154th on the World Press Freedom Index, according to Reporters Without Borders. Freedom House currently ranks the country as only partly free, while Human Rights Watch has raised concerns about the government's increasing intolerance of political opposition and efforts to weaken the rule of law. Abdullah Bozkurt, the president was elected in a free and fair election. Turkey is still a parliamentary democracy with power in the hands of the prime minister and cabinet. The president's role is supposed to be largely symbolic and impartial, above party politics, but it appears that the president himself doesn't see his role that way, does he?
That's true characterization of what's going on in Turkey. I think it's on the paper, yes, it's a parliamentary democracy, but on de facto, I think we have switched to the presidential system where the prime minister is just, caretaker prime minister, and all the cabinet members, they don't have a strong say in the governance of the country. The president himself, from the very lavish palace he built for himself, is running the country with a shadow government. I think that is the case in Turkey. The reducing the situation to a simple feud between Gülen and Erdogan is very oversimplifying the process. Even the opposition political parties in Turkey, they cannot put up a simple billboard on the public to see, because the government is putting pressure on the billboard companies, advertising companies, not to accept any advertisement from the opposition parties. And business community and other media groups that are not affiliated with Gülen, they have also come under heavy pressure from the government. So this is a larger scale attack on the rule of law, on the fundamental rights and the freedoms, and the democratic credentials of Turkey. I think that Turkey is sliding fast to the authoritarian type of the government, where the rule of law, it doesn't matter. The criminal justice system is abused by the political authorities, as we have seen yesterday on the major crackdown, maybe unprecedented level, on the media group in Turkey.
Galip Dele, how do you respond to that? The president is behaving rather like the head of the executive at the moment, with the prime minister beneath him, and that's not the way the roles are legally defined under Turkish law, is it?
Well, I mean, this was an expected thing to happen when Turkey introduced the new law in which the president was going to be elected by popular vote rather than the previous style in which the president was nominated by the parliament. Because for the first time, the president goes to the public and asks for the public support and goes with a political agenda. So therefore, the constitution hasn't changed, but there is a new and unique situation in which, for instance, right now the current president received 52% of the vote. And when it went to the public, when it went based on a political ground. So therefore, there is a unique situation, and I don't know how the government is going to deal with it. But therefore, right now, on the one hand, in terms of constitutional right and the constitutional power, nothing has changed when it comes to the power of the president. But on the other hand, the method and the style of the selecting president has changed. The nature of presidential office has changed. So there is an incompatibility on this ground. And I would like to also answer, I would like to also come on another front, if you allow me. I mean, when it comes to the nature of this power struggle between the government and the Fethullah Gülen movement, the Gülenist movement, is different than the feud between government and the opposition, because on the one hand, we have a legal political opposition, and the fight between them is normal in any democracy. Or the debate sometimes between business organization and government is the normal in any democracy. But right now with the Gülen movement, the fight between Gülen movement and the AK Party is quite unique in nature, because here you have a religious organization is being accused by a very large segment of society, by the Kurds, by the liberals, and etc. And they have championed previously the arrest of many journalists when there was there wasn't this fight between Gülen movement and the AK Party.
Okay. Well, let's put that.
Therefore, it is a unique situation.
Yeah, let's put that back to Abdullah Bozkurt then. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, we have been hearing these arguments for over a year now, and the government failed to come up with any evidence so far. And the major raid yesterday on our newspaper, from what we understand, is they lack the evidence to back up the claims. How could you claim that, about 3,000 people trying to overtake the government with their pens, with the newspaper articles? I mean, it is very difficult to grasp the nature of the allegation. And our editor-in-chief, Ekrem Dumanlı, he was asked by, why the newspaper ran a couple of articles on Al-Qaeda-affiliated group back in 2010. It is almost like the government is trying to protect the Al-Qaeda-affiliated group in Turkey. I mean, this was the investigation back in 2010. It was authorized by the government at the time, and it was by the book. I don't understand why they're coming back to this investigation and asking a newspaper editor-in-chief for the coverage of Al-Qaeda raids done by the police at the time.
Fadi Hakura, what do you make of what you've just heard there? That it was only to be expected after his election in August that the president would begin to behave as though he has executive powers.
The trouble in Turkey is that there are limited checks and balances to curtail the power of a very, very centralized system of government. If just to quote a few statistics here, you have 70% of government revenues, of tax revenues flow to the central government coffers. 85% of civil servants work for the central government. So what you have in Turkey is a highly centralized system of government with very few checks and balances, and therefore it can lead to this type of events unfolding what we have seen in the last few days in Turkey.
To what extent, Fadi, does the president and his party walk a fine line between Turkey's secularists and the military in Turkey, and those pushing for religion to play a greater role in Turkish society and the state? What are the dangers for Erdogan and for Turkey?
I think that the main challenge to President Erdogan's power is the state of the economy in Turkey. And what we are seeing recently is a prolonged economic slowdown in Turkey. Turkey's entered a long-term economic stagnation with slow growth rates, unlike what we have seen in the last decade. So I think that is the primary concern of President Erdogan and his government.
Galip Dale, what is the president likely, do you think, to seek further powers, consolidation of powers for the office of president? What do you think are his political ambitions?
Well, definitely. I mean, as I said, since the system has changed, the president looks like that he's going to seek further power if possible. But I don't see any possibility for change of the system down the road, because in order to change the current system, the government needs to have either 330 MPs in parliament in order to bring it to referendum, or 367 MP in order to change it within the parliament. And in the coming election, I don't see that as possible. So on the one hand, he might desire to do so, but on the other hand, I don't see how it's going to be done in a normal way.
Abdullah Bozkır, what do you make of that then? If the president wishes that he could change the constitution but can't, what's to stop him behaving as though the constitution were in his favour anyway?
Well, I don't see any possibility of changing the system from parliamentary democracy to presidential one. They don't have the enough, support in the parliament. That's for sure. But what we have currently is a president who wants to exercise all the powers of the government, although it's not on the book, it's not on the constitution. That's why we are seeing a huge friction within the government, actually simmering underneath. That's why we are seeing a huge trouble with opposition parties. If you try to exercise and consolidate power in one man's hand, then that will create a constant friction and crisis practically every week in Turkey. And that's why actually the president is directing and pulling the strings behind this major investigation and a crackdown on the independent and critical media in Turkey. And the next target will be the business community that are not loyal to the government. We'll see them, getting audited by the inspectors and by the finance ministry. And then we'll come to the civil society organization, and it will go on forever. So this will create a constant crisis and friction in the Turkish society. And at one point, it will be impossible to sustain this.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of the international reaction. Both the US and the EU have been highly critical of the arrests in Turkey. Turkey began talks to join the European Union in 2005, but it's made little progress, particularly because of opposition from countries like Germany. And these latest arrests have drawn unusually strong criticism from EU officials. A statement read, "This operation goes against the European values and standards that Turkey aspires to be part of," adding any further step towards accession with any candidate country depends on the full respect for the rule of law and fundamental rights. Galip Dale, does it matter to Turkey what the EU thinks or says?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, when you look at the current nature of relation between Turkey and EU, it is a stalled relations. And unfortunately, because the prospect for membership doesn't look like very promising, therefore the EU sway over Turkey is almost nil. So from this perspective, while it does provide discursive help to the government critics, but I don't think that it is going to bear any impact on the course of the action that government is going to take, because as I said, the government does not regard EU as credible when it comes to the membership. I mean, in the end, there are so many members that openly said that they are going to be against Turkish membership. And in order for a country to become an EU member, it requires the full approval of all member states. So therefore, the membership prospect does not seem promising. And from this perspective, it's not that. And on the other hand, I think the EU and the West's reaction on events in the Middle East, the coup in Egypt, like the, from the US, like NSA or like, etc., that has diminished the moral sway of the EU, both over the government and over the Turkish population.
Abdullah Bozkır, what do you make of that? Does EU membership matter anymore for the people of Turkey? Is it drifting away from Europe, perhaps pivoting more towards Eurasia, Russia, and its regional neighbours to the east?
Well, I don't see that as a possibility. I mean, German Marshall Fund survey recently, revealed that actually the support among the Turks for the EU and the NATO actually is increasing. Maybe 10%, spike from the last year, which is kind of unprecedented, which is also understandable considering what's happening in Turkey domestically, sliding back on the democracy scale, but also from the regional challenges from Syria, Iraq, ISIL threat and others. So people in Turkey are actually looking at the EU and the transatlantic alliance as kind of assurances for the democracy and for the security challenges. And secondly, I think the EU has more leverage on Turkey than just the membership prospect. If you look at the export ratio, 40% of the Turkish export is going to the EU market, which is the single largest bloc for Turkey, and 80% of the foreign direct investment is coming from the EU. And foreign travelers, most of them is coming from the EU member states. So if you factor all these leverages, then the country which is sliding back on the democracy and press freedom is getting worse, then the investors will start pulling away from the Turkey, and that will hurt the Turkish economy in the medium run.
Fadi Hokura, I mean, all right, Turkey is a member of NATO. It's tethered militarily to the West, but I mean, let's face it, the reality is that membership of the EU is further away than ever for Turkey. Is anybody, really serious about Turkey joining the EU?
I don't think that there is any prospect of Turkey joining the EU anytime soon, at least not during my lifetime. I don't think that President Erdogan and his government are losing any sleep over the the European Union's reaction to the recent developments in Turkey. If we've seen also that the United States Obama administration's reaction has been far more measured. For the Obama administration, the key concern now is battling the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, rather than the state of media freedoms and democracy in Turkey. So overall, I think that President Erdogan doesn't really care what the outside world, what the outside world is saying, in particular what the United States and the European Union are reacting.
We have just a couple of minutes left. Galip Dale, what of the future for Turkey? Will it be looking west or east? Or will it settle perhaps for independence, being a strong economic and military power that builds political and economic ties to suit its own needs?
Well, I think Turkey does not have the luxury of either choosing west over the east or choosing east over the west because of the geography, because of the economy, because of the social ties, etc., as the Britain does not have to choose between the US and the EU. Turkey does not have to choose between west and the east, and it has to have good relation on both sides. But let me say something very shortly. I think right now just focusing simply on the governing party does not reveal the full picture of Turkey. Right now, why do people still keep supporting the governing party? Because simply they don't see any better options, when it comes to opposition, etc. So therefore, if we talk about Turkish politics, we need to focus on the opposition as well. And another important point that I think we need to make is another thing that was posing a great danger to Turkish democracy was the presence of a shady organization within the state apparatus that has been accused, as I said, not just by the governing party, but by the Kurds, by the liberals, by the Kemalists, by the all set. After each and every single cases, we heard the same name, the Gülenist movement. It was when it was Kemalist, when it was the other journalists, and it was not when the Gülenist paper speaks to the international media, they like to portray it as if it was only like, Islamists versus Gilenists. But let's look at the secular forces in Turkey. When they were being arrested, I mean, they used the same name. The Gülenists were seen behind the scene. So therefore, I think Turkey has to settle account on this regard as well.
There, gentlemen, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it. Many thanks indeed to all of you. Abdullah Bozkurt in Ankara, Galip Dalay in Berlin, and Fadi Hakura in London. Don't forget, you can watch this show and many more at our website on aljazeera.com. You can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story if you want to take part in the debate, or you can tweet us at AJ Inside Story. In Doha, I'm Adrian Finnegan. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again. Bye for now.